enforcement would take place after the problem is noted. And enforcement might take the place of like a fine, usually against, like if it was an employer who was not paying their employees, there might be a fine to that employer that would get, that money would come back to the office and then get distributed back out to the workers or the public in some way. We also influence policy. We don't make policy in the office, that's the legislator's job. But we do influence it based on what we see of the issues that citizens are facing. And then prevention is the main thing that my division does. That's why we're here today, to talk to people about what their rights are, how to stay protected and aware under the law. So the AGO, the Attorney General's office, the main office is in Boston, but we also have an office here in Worcester. That's where I work out of, right on Mechanic Street. There's one in New Bedford and one in Springfield as well. The Attorney General is very committed to making sure that all across the state folks are aware of the office and aware of their rights under the law. This is a lot of words, basically saying that I'm a lawyer, and even if I were a lawyer, the Attorney General doesn't, it's not a lawyer in the sense that they will take your individual cases, right? So our office and informative trainings like this are basically just about getting information out to people. It's not meant to be considered legal advice, right? If you have a legal problem or even a problem with your landlord or your bank or any kind of consumer issue, you really need to consult a lawyer. And then there may be some links in this training out to outside parties, like maybe the Federal Trade Commission or things like that. We are not associated with those external organizations. So how does it all work anyway? Let's go to the next slide. So there are two types of tenancy. There's a tenancy based on a lease, which involves a written contract, a written lease. It lasts a specific amount of time. It's usually a year, but it could be shorter amounts. And the rent stays the same throughout that entire period of the lease. The second type of tenancy is called a tenancy at will. And that is, sometimes there is no written agreement. It lasts as long as both parties want to do business together. And the rent can change within the tenancy at will as long as the landlord gives the tenant 30 days notice. If someone does a tenancy at will, sometimes it looks, like it might be a loose arrangement, maybe between family, maybe some other casual arrangement. We always recommend having the terms of the agreement in writing. It's good practice in case ever there's problems. You can refer back to your agreement with the landlord. So even if there's not a lease in the standard tenancy, if it's a tenancy at will and based on an agreement, you should have it in writing again, whether you have to go to court or just it's good practice to have your terms that you agree upon in writing. So the terms of a rental agreement in either kind of tenancy must contain the owner's name, the person responsible for the maintenance of the unit in the property, and the person to whom the tenant gives copies of formal notices, complaints, report papers. It may be the same person, it may be a landlord, but it's a bigger unit, bigger complexes. It may be there's a landlord and there's a property manager who comes and fixes things, shovels snow, and who you give complaints to. So you need to have all of that in the agreement. You need to get your lease in a legible form, obviously. When you sign the lease, you get a copy, the landlord gets a copy. The obligations of the landlord and the tenant. So the tenant is obligated to pay their rent. They have to follow the rules agreed upon in the lease that they agreed upon with the landlord, and they need to accept responsibility for any damages that happen beyond normal wear and tear. The landlord must provide an apartment that is safe and in compliance, clean, in compliance with the sanitary code, and they must live up to any additional promises that are made in the lease. So in either kind of tenancy, whether it's a lease or a tenancy at will, the tenant has the right to occupy the apartment and the landlord can only enter under certain circumstances. So the landlord has to arrange with the tenant in advance to enter the apartment if they need to inspect it or they want to show it to prospective future tenants. The landlord is allowed to enter without getting prior approval from the tenant if they are afraid that there's a mechanical or repair emergency that might affect the whole building. So that is their right if that is the case. Or if it seems that the tenant has abandoned the property. Otherwise, the landlord always has to let you know if they're coming in. And so what do you have to pay at the start of the tenancy? First and last month's rent is usual. Not every landlord will do that. And then they can charge the first month's rent, the last month's rent. There's a picture of a key to say that they can charge to change the locks. That can be something that the landlord can charge the tenant. And a security deposit. The landlord should provide signed receipts for the payments made with a cash or money order. So you need to walk away with a receipt of what you paid, and your security deposit, is going to be put into a bank. The security deposit can only equal 1 month's rent, so there can't be anything added on top of that. The landlord needs, again, to supply the receipt, and the receipt should always have the amount paid, the date, the landlord's name, who the payment was given to if it wasn't the landlord, and that's important to keep for your records. The last month's rent will be applied when you're moving out. So you give your landlord notice that you're leaving, within the terms of the agreement, give them the amount of notice that they require according to the lease. They will apply that last month's rent and use it at that time. So rather than paying last month's rent, it's already going to come out of what you paid. The tenant must give a receipt. And so the security deposit is really key. Your money has the right, the landlords are required to put your security deposit into an interest-bearing account under your name, right? So, and you get a copy of that. So you're going to get the name and the address of the bank, as it says here, and the account number. Each year, the landlord has to either pay the tenant the interest on the security deposit or allow you to deduct the amount of the interest from a rental payment. And when you pay the security deposit, you get what's called a statement of condition, which describes the condition of the apartment and any damage that exists at that time. And then the landlord must return security deposit with the interest that hasn't been paid out to you yet within 30 days of the tenancy ending.
Never had that happen.
Now, I see some folks taking pictures. Just want to let you know, I should have said so at the beginning, that this PowerPoint, I'm going to, if you'd like to sign a little sign-in sheet, the reference librarian who is hosting me here, since she would take everybody's email, and you can get a copy of this in a PDF form. So you have the links, you have the numbers, you have all this information to take with you. So don't worry about it if you don't catch something here. And let's see. So yeah, so they return the security deposit within 30 days. Statement of condition that has to happen within 10 days of you starting your lease. So that means every damage, every ding, every problem that exists in the apartment should be noted already that you didn't do it, it was already existing. And then you have, the tenant will have 15 days to go over that and add anything to it. Oh, you know what, this cabinet door doesn't work. Please make a note about that, it's coming off its hinge. All of that stuff has to be put in the statement of condition within that time period. So the landlord has 10 days to make note of everything, and then you have 15 days to add to it. And then you keep that version, so when you end the tenancy, when you're ready to get your security deposit back, there's proof of like, no, that cabinet was already broken when I got here, things like that.
I have a question.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Is this all required by law?
Yes, that's a security deposit is under the law of the security deposit. And yes,
I have a question. How about if the landlord passes away and a family member takes over? Same
the
thing?
laws still apply no matter who is the owner of the property. As a tenant, you have these rights.
Yeah. So she has to do that too? The daughter
Yes.
that took over?
If your lease
Yeah.
your lease would still be, did you start a new lease with the new owner?
No.
So the lease got continued.
And then she sold the property to her brother-in-law and nothing.
So the property changed hands
Yes.
legally.
Twice over.
But they kept you as a tenant. They didn't say, well, you need to leave or sign a new lease.
No.
Then all of the existing lease that you signed, you have a copy of the lease?
No, they stole it off my table.
Okay.
Yeah. So it'd be on
You have
record?
your own copy of that?
No, they stole it off the table. They came into my apartment and when I wasn't there and took my paperwork.
Wow, okay.
Yeah. Would that be on record someplace?
Pardon me?
Would that be on record someplace?
Well, the former owner,
Yeah.
you're saying that basically the person who signed the lease with you
Yeah.
passed away?
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know the answer to that. So what I can talk to you at the end,
Yeah.
we have within our Attorney General's office,
Yeah.
we do have several, consumer assistance
Yeah.
programs, right? So there is a consumer team that deals with housing issues.
Yeah.
So there's one opportunity you could file a complaint either with me or going online to do it.
Okay.
Or sending it in at a later time, or you could consult like legal aid or legal services or a private attorney to get an answer about that.
Yeah.
So, but we'll talk a little bit more afterwards.
Okay.
If there's any place else I can direct.
I'm sorry.
I also have a question
Yeah.
regarding the interest on the security deposit. I've never heard of it.
That you have the right to have your security deposit earning interest.
Yeah.
Yeah, the security deposit is your money, and it's there in case any damage that you do, the landlord can access that fund. But essentially, it's your money, and it should be earning interest.
Okay, so you can.
I have heard it where people keep the interest and they don't get it till the end of their tenancy, but I guess it could be required that they pay it to you every month.
Never got that ever back
Yeah,
before.
so that is
Ever.
yeah.
Okay. And are the landlords legally required to put it in a bank, or they just can hold the money that is in that safe?
They are required to put it in the bank.
Okay.
Yeah, and
Hi, Rose.
I think the most current, I can direct you to the AGO's website, the Attorney General's office's website afterwards,
Yeah.
where there's a link to the landlord's, rights and responsibilities like we're talking about here. So it is in writing, and you can direct that to, you can. The way we always recommend that, if you need a lawyer to take any action, but you can always, point out to your landlord, hey, this is the law, I didn't realize that, this is the amount of time I've had. I don't know how that would work, and if you need advocacy for that, the place would be, like I mentioned before, to create a consumer complaint through the AG's office, which would get viewed by the housing team to see what kind of assistance, whether it's one of our consumer assistants that might be able to help you, or whether they recommend you get a lawyer to assist you with that. But it is the law. It is definitely the law.
Thank you.
Yeah. Welcome.
Thank you.
I was saying beforehand, we do have a sign-in sheet that you're not required to do, but if you wanted to give the email address to the librarian, I'm going to distribute this in PDF form at the end. So you can have a copy of it with all the links and the information in it. Yeah, so that's an option.
We get any of this, like, what we're talking about today, in an email or something if you want?
That's what I was just saying. You can take that, you're welcome to pass around that form. If you want to pass it around, and then I'll keep talking. There's a lot of material to cover, and I want to make sure that you get it all, and that we get any questions that you might
I
have.
just want to follow up what she's Sandra, Chiara planted. She worked for city housing.
Oh, let's talk at the end, and I'd love to hear
Well,
more
you're
about
a special
that.
person, so we'll stop you again.
So, just want to make sure I get through all this
Oh my
material.
gosh.
All right, questions and information you should consider about renting. So if you're going into a lease situation, you want to ask, do they cover, does the rent cover utilities, or are you responsible for paying the utilities? And what are those utilities? Is it gas, or oil, heat, or propane, or electric power? You should find out all of those things. If amenities are present, is there any additional costs? So like some places might have a pool, and they can't require you to pay for the pool, but they can limit the access to only the people who did pay. So they can't say, oh, this apartment it's $1,500 a month, but it also has a pool, so it's gonna be an extra $75. No, they can't require you to pay for those amenities. But they can say, only people who pay get a key to it. If repairs are necessary, both parties should discuss whether the landlord will make the repairs before the tenant moves in. The landlord and the prospective tenant together should check every plumbing fixture, light switch, cupboard door, and appliance to make sure they all work properly. That's what we were talking about before with the statement of condition before you move in. Similarly, the lease or rental agreement should include a list of all the repairs and a time frame to complete that the landlord agrees upon at the time you start the tenancy. The lease or rental agreement should also note if major appliances are included, such as like a washing machine, things like that. Let's see. So under Massachusetts law, the landlord's responsibility is also to clear any snow or ice, finally in the warm weather, but if there's snow or ice, they are required to take it away from your apartment. The towns have their own rules about whether or not who takes care of the public places, like the walkways. Sometimes it's the town, sometimes it's the landlord's responsibility, sometimes it's the tenants. Information regarding pets, you want to find out, does the landlord allow pets? And will they require you to pay a higher amount for a pet? A pet deposit is illegal, a security deposit for a pet. However, landlords can charge a higher monthly rent for a pet if they disclose that to you in advance. They can't say, oh, here's the apartment, we agreed on $1,500, and then you show up with your cat, and like, oh no, there's extra. They have to tell you that in advance. You also, if you have a disability and you have a support animal or a service animal, they cannot ask you to pay more for those. That's your right to have that. And if you ever had an issue with that, that would be not a consumer complaint, but a civil rights complaint with our office. So, the Fair Housing Act protects people to have those support and service animals. So, let's see. Weird. Yep. This is the sanitary code some of us were chatting about a little bit earlier. In Massachusetts, the sanitary code governs what it means to be safe and habitable, right? It has to be up to code at all times. If a sanitary violation isn't addressed by the landlord, the tenant can request an official to come and inspect the unit. So you've got to give the landlord a chance to address it first. If the landlord still fails to fix a problem, a tenant may be able to withhold a portion of their rent or move out before the end of the lease. So, let's see. We always recommend not withholding rent until you've gotten some legal advice, right? Because you don't want to be in default of your rent. The landlord could evict you for non-payment of rent. So you want to do all the steps first, and then get legal advice about whether you have a right to withhold that rent. I've heard it said too that you really want to keep, if somebody's coming to inspect your unit, you want it to be clean. You don't want to give them an opportunity to say, oh, you're not taking care of the place. You want the inspector to only see the problem that's the landlord's responsibility. Like, clearly that's mold, or clearly those are bugs. That's going to be the landlord's responsibility. They don't, so you keep your place clean when an inspector's coming. So recent changes in code. You are going to get this in the email. You're definitely going to get this. Yeah, this is why I'm having you sign your email address, because you're gonna get this whole thing in a PDF form, so you can easily read it. So the changes made to the sanitary code, and that covers all of these categories, right? So it covers pests, moisture or mold, kitchen, which means you are required to have a cooktop and a stove, a refrigerator with a freezer, and heating. And the heating needs to be, they don't have to provide you may have to pay your own utilities, but they have to have a functioning heating system that is on for the amount of time from, I believe it's September 15th to May 31st. It has to be available to use, and that's your right by law. You can't just shut down the heating if it's April or something. It goes through May 31st. And what is the other thing? Oh, and landlord response. The landlord must give you a number that they can be reached on. That's what this little phone is about. They need to be reachable within every 12 hours. Somebody must check the contact number that they give you. They can't be unreachable, right? That's part of the sanitary code. Okay, so let's see. We are about halfway through the slides. Dressing conditions. So if you do have issues with any of those sanitary code problems, again, moisture or pests or any of the things we just talked about, you have to notify your landlord in writing, right? And then request the repair to be done. So I'd like this thing fixed, I'd like this thing cleaned up, etc. If your landlord doesn't fix the problem, then you contact your local board of health. And then the board of health, if they identify a problem, will order the landlord to address it or fix it. If that doesn't work and the landlord still ignores the board of health, that's when you may be able to file a case in housing court seeking an order that requires the landlord to complete these repairs. Whoops, too soon. But can I withhold rent? Can I make the repairs myself? This is what people want to know. There's a process to doing the withholding of rent. You can't, like I said before, just stop paying them because they seem to be ignoring your requests, right? You may withhold a portion of the rent if all of the conditions are met. You got it inspected, they found a violation, and you notified the landlord, and you are all current on your rent. You are not the cause of the problem, right? There's not a lot of bugs because you have a pile of food on the floor. It's their problem, and the repairs don't require you to leave, right? They could easily come in while you still live in the place and come fix it. If all of those conditions are met, then you may be able to withhold a portion of the rent, which gets determined by court, and so that's where you really need to get legal advice at that point if you file in housing court. And then making your own repairs. You may make emergency repairs and deduct up to 4 months of future rent if the local board of health or other code enforcement agency has certified that conditions endanger your health or safety, and the landlord receives written notice of the existing violations from that board of health or inspecting agency. And then the landlord is given 5 days to begin to do the work or contract to do the repairs. And if you end up, the court could make it shorter than that amount of time. They have 14 days to complete all this, but they could make it shorter.
4 months.
Depending on what housing
See
court
that?
says, if you end up going to housing court.
Jeez.
If you do make all your own repairs, you need to keep all the receipts, and the repairs must be reasonable, the costs, right? You can't have your brother come in and charge you 3 times the amount to fix something. It needs to be a reasonable cost of repair. And then you can deduct no more than 4 months of future rent. Now, the thing with holding back rent, if they come in and they fix everything, you will owe that rent. It's just an opportunity to enforce them to take the action.
One thing I was told was to put it in an escrow account, if you have a problem with your landlord, to go to an escrow account. So this way here, at least, when you go to court, the judge will see that you're trying to make rent payments, but you're forcing the landlord to suffer until
So
they
you're-
fix the problem, which means they don't get the rent right away, but they will get it like a year later.
And
But
you're
you
not
pay the
spending
escrow.
that money, so that's really wise, yeah, because that money you will ultimately owe. So if you're keeping it in an account, then it is marked for that rent when the
Oh,
repairs
so
will get
you
made.
will have to pay that rent no matter what?
Well, if the repairs all get fixed. Otherwise, it's a amount of rent that would be considered a fair value, right? So if you're in an apartment that has all of these issues, it wouldn't be worth the full price. So that determining of that fair value would come out of, I think, the housing board situation. So that's kind of the advanced stage. You can't just determine it on your own. Right? So there's a bunch of steps to get that help.
But at least the judge will determine what
Yes,
they need to,
that would be-
based on the escrow account. It's good to always have an escrow account.
Yeah, I'm not exactly sure how that works. Again, I'm not a lawyer, so back, it's funny you came in a little late, the disclaimer at the beginning, not a lawyer also. These guidelines are, so you know what the rights are, so you can, if you do need to consult a lawyer.
I know paralegal who taught me all about that.
Oh, that's good.
Escrow account.
Alright, so this is called RAFT, State Rent Relief. It's residential assistance to families in transition. And so that's available for folks who have a problem, with housing costs, if there's if you're facing eviction, if there's loss of utilities or other housing emergencies caused by loss of income or an increase in expenses. I skipped this line. We can help with past due, future rent, utility bills, moving, furniture, or the startup costs of a new lease. RAFs may be available to households with income up to 50 or 60% of the area median income. This link here is hard to see in this light, for me anyway, but it's basically the link to how to apply for residential assistance. And that will be in the slideshow. And your landlord cannot retaliate you, so it is illegal for them to evict you because you brought something up, which is you protecting your own rights.
Yep.
And the eviction process takes a long time, and so if you don't feel intimidated if somebody says, get out of here, you're making too much noise, or you're not paying your rent. The eviction process is a process. They have to go through all the steps. And so, again, there's many protections that you have under the law. So how does the summary process work? The landlord must give a 14-day or 30-day, depending on the situation, notice to quit to the tenant. If you get a notice to quit, that's not an eviction. That doesn't mean pack your bags and leave. That's the start. That's what the landlord is required to do to start this process, the legal process. After that, that 14 or 30-day notice to quit is received in writing by you, the tenant. Then the process would get started if the landlord goes to file a civil action in court.
I have a question.
Yeah,
That paperwork would be from a landlord or a lawyer?
the notice to quit.
Yeah.
I think it could be from either, but the words notice to quit is your notice, it's your initial notice. Now sometimes a notice to quit can just be the start of a conversation that you have with your landlord.
It has
Look,
nothing
I
to
got
do.
this notice to quit, but I have the rent, I'm behind a month, but I have it, or I have half of it. You can maybe work out a situation that the landlord doesn't take you. It's a very costly process for a landlord to go and get someone, get a lawyer and take it to court. So when you get a notice to quit, it's not a sign to pack your bags, it's a sign to figure out, maybe working out a solution with your landlord about that.
I feel that,
Notice to quit.
I'm sorry.
Something like,
Hello.
landlord is in the process of quitting whatever was happening?
No, it's a legal
If they
term.
quit,
No, it's a
they have
legal
to-
term that they have, and again, they are required to give that before they do anything else.
Why is it called a notice to quit then, and not something
I
else?
don't know how that came up.
The Bible quit means to.
There's all kinds of legal terms that don't make like literal sense, to my mind anyway.
Yeah.
Yes,
Now, I have a question, would a
Interrupt me.
landlord be able to not kick you out, but make your life as miserable as possible? Is that legal? So for example, one of my friends got her gas shut off.
That's harassment.
no, that's illegal.
It's illegal.
It's illegal.
She moved out next month, but
Yeah, that's
like the
illegal.
landlord just shut off the gas.
That's illegal.
Yep.
Yeah,
I've seen tactics like that, in hot water, taking on.
yeah.
I heard by Lee Hall that, because she's the sanitary, that if the landlord's paying for heat during their heat system when it's supposed to be turned on, you're supposed to keep it on, or it's against the law for the landlord to turn it off, or not turn it on when it's needed to be turned on. You
Yes.
can also, in the winter,
You know what, I
it's against
actually,
the law for the
I
landlord
took
not to
the
turn
winter
it on.
slides out just because it's like so hot out, but, it is absolutely, like I mentioned before, from September 15th to, May 31st, they are required to have the heat functioning. So even if you're paying for it, you can go turn on your heat, you'll get the bill the next month, but that's your right to have access to heat during that period. It's against the law for them to take that off, during that time period.
Okay.
And as a tactic, yeah, that sounds like retaliation, so that would be a civil rights violation, which we
Yeah.
mentioned before. So that would be, again, cause for either consulting a lawyer or filing a complaint with our office. Again, I'm not a lawyer and I don't work in the civil rights division, but they would take complaints like that. And
I find that this notice to quit, I know several people think that is actually a court paper.
right,
They make it look so official,
right.
and they let me look at their paperwork, and I'm like, no, this is not a legal paperwork from the courts. And it's a lawyer involved.
Right, it's not.
So it's very
It
confusing
can get confusing, yeah,
to people. They think it's the court saying get out in 30 days.
right.
Which
No,
is
no, a notice to
not
quit is
fair.
not that, yeah. And again,
Is there any way it could be a law stating that this is not a legal document from the courts?
Well, it's a legal
For-
document, but it's not a court.
No, it's not a legal document from the courts.
it's not an order from the court,
Yeah.
correct?
So is there any way the heading of the paperwork would say
Well,
that?
I think what you're saying is
To
that
enforce
sometimes
that.
they use like intimidating means
Yes.
to make it look like
You know how many
this
people
is-
get that notice to quit and they move out because they think it's a court order because they don't know?
Notice, well, you're informed, you guys are all really well.
Yeah, we
informed.
are,
You
but
can
other
tell your
people aren't.
That you need, a notice to quit is not, it's not.
Yes,
a court order.
we know, but other
So the
people
next
don't.
step- Next step would be the court.
Oh my
So
God.
one thing I say is go to a
I
chief
disagree with
sanitary
this.
inspector for housing division. It might not be Lee Hall anymore, don't know, but it's across from the courthouse somewhere.
Yeah,
and
you
they
guys are
help
really well
with
informed.
the answers that we're.
We are
Let
informed,
me
but
do
other
the
people
rest of
aren't.
these Slides, just to make sure I did my due diligence and you have everything and then we can have a discussion with some more questions and resources.
But like I was trying to say,
Sorry about that.
I'm trying to say, this is a lawyer involved, and it looked so official. But I was telling this guy, I'm not mentioning no names or anything, but I was telling him this is not a legal document. This is just from the lawyer, but it looks so official.
Okay.
This person thought he had to leave in 30 days.
Hold
That's
on to
not
those
fair.
thoughts. I'm gonna complete
Yeah.
these. So again, I didn't finish all these little buttons. So the court process starts when they file in court, and then landlord has to get a judgment from court that does say the date on it before an eviction can happen. And then the tenant does have the right to raise defenses against that eviction. So what might those defenses be? You didn't terminate the tenancy properly, you gave it the right amount of time or notice. You didn't fix these known conditions, that I brought up to you, or that the landlord is evicting you because they're retaliating you for certain things, like raising your rights. Or if they are discriminating, you have the right to bring that up. Well, they didn't fix, something that accommodates me and my disability. The tenant has the right to live in the home despite their ability, and the landlord has to abide by that. If the tenant does not leave voluntarily on the date specified by a court, then a landlord can arrange for a sheriff or a constable to serve an executed judgment on the tenant ordering them to leave. And if necessary, they can relocate any personal belongings from the unit into a storage facility, and then the tenant is allowed a one-time opportunity to go to the storage facility and get their things back after they pay that storage fee. But that can only happen if there is an executed judgment and a court ordered by the court. Okay, so we do have, this is the link to the consumer complaint form. Again, you're going to get this later.